Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551. Excuse me. And I am back with a video review and also a special video because, as you can tell from the shirt that I'm wearing, it's a Star Wars themed one. And for this review, we're going to be doing a review of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for the PlayStation 4. Also, games also available on Xbox One and PC via Steam. Excuse me. Oop. Plus, for this special Star Wars video that I'm doing, I want to give my thoughts on the Disney Plus show, The Mandalorian, if I'm saying the name correctly, and I want to give my thoughts on the movie Rise of Skywalker that I just recently came back from the theaters to see. But we'll start off first with our review of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. No, excuse me. Alright, when it comes to the Star Wars video game license, the license has its histories of hits and miss. There are games that are considered to be classic to many people, like Knights of the Old Republic, made by BioWare, to even games like the Rogue Squadron series, that's beloved by, well, I mean, mostly by Nintendo fans as well. But there have been cases of bad Star Wars games, or Star Wars games that have been, well, mediocre though. And then there is EA that, well, when Disney gave them the Star Wars license for a bit, let's just say not everyone was happy about it, and from up to this point, the results they have shown have not been, well, great. The Battlefront, the first one, though, was supposedly incomplete, and many people were not happy about it, especially when it turned out they rushed out a $50 season pass, and so forth, though. We've already know about Battlefront.to, and the whole situation with the microtransaction and the loot boxes, and the amount of backlash that generated, though, not to mention reports of also cancellations of several Star Wars games, such as one that's known as Ragtag, to a bounty hunter style type of approach, because, you know, it didn't fit EA's vision, because they believe nobody played linear games and all that stuff. Or single player games. Super Mario Odyssey, Horizon Zero Dawn, games like those would like to have a word with you, EA, and so forth. So it was sort of kind of surprising at E3 2018 during EA's god-awful presentation how Respawn was working on Jedi Fallen Order. Now, at first, I just pretty much did not even bother paying attention to it because, given this is EA we're talking about, the worry sign was that basically EA would put their crummy little hands on it, put unnecessary microtransaction, find a way to nickel and dime people to death, though. So I pretty much ignored it even after the game came out for a bit, though. But then, right as we get closer to the holidays, I started to pay attention a little bit more to it, and basically started to see that EA wasn't really putting any microtransaction or anything like that in it. So I wanted to try the game out myself and see if if EA actually has put out a good Star Wars game. And the answer to that is yes. For the first time ever, EA, or at least developed by Respawn, actually put out a good Star Wars game, which is both a good thing, which is certainly a good thing, but it also makes me kind of sad. I may have said this before, and I'll probably say it again as well. But why don't we get started with the pros and cons, and we'll start off first with the pros. And the first one I want to talk about is the story. Now, I've always enjoyed the lore in the Star Wars series, though. And some of them, yes and no and all that stuff, but this one I definitely like. This one the lore kind of feels somewhat like kind of what The Force Unleashed was in a way. This one mostly feels like it takes place after Revenge of the Sith, but before the New Hope, and you basically play as this new Jedi, or a Jedi in hiding and all that stuff. And basically the story just has, the Star Wars feel to it and all. And I will say, story-wise, it's good. It's certainly good. And the other thing I want to talk about is the gameplay, and that is sort of, in my view, the meat and the bones. And the gameplay is certainly good. It kind of has a mixture of Dark Souls and Metroidvania in it, though. The Metroidvania part are certain areas you cannot access until you get sort of like, a better force power and so forth. Kind of like what it was in the classic Metroid game, where some areas cannot be accessed until you get a certain weapon or power-up. And the Dark Souls part, where some of the enemies, it can be difficult and all that stuff, but it is certainly challenging. Every time you defeat one, you earn experience points, and you can use those experience points at certain spots, or meditations as they call it, where you can sort of level up your character and so forth. But like Dark Souls, though, the game can be challenging, and if you die, though, you basically lose all your experience points, or the ones you haven't spent yet, and you'll have to hunt down the enemy that took your life and get all your experience points back and all that stuff. So it adds a bit of a challenge, and that certainly isn't necessarily a bad thing. So from a gameplay perspective, it has that Dark Souls and Metroidvania vibe to it. That certainly is, in my view, a good thing indeed. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to part 2, which is the cons. And I want to give my thoughts on The Mandalorian and the movie Rise of Skywalker. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our video review of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for the PlayStation 4. So now that I gave you my pros about it, what I liked about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, why don't I give you the cons now? They're like the pros, there are only 2 cons I could think of based on my time with the game. The first one I do want to talk about is the frame rate. Now, I do want to say, based on my time with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the frame rate runs, for the majority of the time, a 30 frames per second based on my time playing it on the base PS4. That said, there are occasions where I've seen the frame rate kind of dip a little bit, though. There are certain times, sometimes it will drop like below 30, like into the 20s and all that stuff. They're not huge spikes or not huge drops or anything like that, but they are noticeable. So it's kind of minor, but excuse me. Ooh. Like I said, it's kind of minor, but there are some frame rate issues, sometimes here and there, even after the game has gotten some of its patches, though. And the last but not least I want to talk about is, as part of the gameplay, is the Dark Souls part. Now, as I mentioned in the pros, though, the game has a Dark Souls and a Metroidvania vibe to it and all, and that certainly is a good thing for those who like Dark Souls-like games and all that stuff. That being said, there's no denying that Dark Souls-type games can also turn some people off at the same time, as the difficulty, it doesn't sit well with everybody. And this game follows some of the Dark Souls things that most people are knows about. Enemies are difficult, though. If you die, you lose all your experience points, and you have to get them back and so forth. So that part might turn some people off. It may not be an issue for some, but it might be an issue for those who aren't big into the whole dark side of the game. Excuse me, gameplay and all. Overall, I have to say, I am enjoying Jedi Fallen Order. It took this long, but we finally have a good Star Wars game published under EA, though. The story is good, and the gameplay is still enjoyable and all. Yes, there are some frame rate issues and all that stuff, and the Dark Souls part might turn some people off, but it is still an enjoyable, linear, single-player game, and so forth. And it is certainly the best Star Wars game under EA's name, which, I know I'm being a dead horse saying this, but it's also sad at the same time. The fact that it took EA this long to actually put out a good Star Wars game, or let alone a linear single-player game. The fact that they had to go through backlash, controversies, and all to get to this point is what's really sad about the situation. I mean, I feel that the Star Wars license still has potential, and there's many different kinds of genres you can make out, including RPGs and so forth, but it felt like EA was looking at nothing more than taking a license and finding a way to nickel and dime people to death, and the backlash certainly got them into a whole mess of trouble. And I think what's the saddest part is that it took them that long to produce something like this. Now, I got nothing against, Respawn or anything like that. I say hats off to Respawn. entertainment. I'm glad they made a linear single-player game, and I would be open for them to doing more single-player games down the road. Not that I'm saying they should abandon Titanfall or Apex Legend and all that stuff, but it's just sad that it took EA this long to produce a good Star Wars game, and it honestly doesn't change my opinion in regards of the fact that I really think Disney should reevaluate the license and all that stuff and really look at other developers outside of EA. And I still stand behind on my comment about an article the Venture Brothers, if I'm saying the name correctly though, put out an article about EA earning the Star Wars license. No. They only put out one good Star Wars license. The fact that it took them this long doesn't earn them the right to basically have the Star Wars license. I really think Disney needs to look at other developers as well. I know it may sound a little odd that a 37-year-old man, excuse me, a 37-year-old man wearing a Star Wars t-shirt. I know that's going to sound odd to a lot of people, but I just feel, given the way EA has handled the license so far, I really think it's best for Disney to look at other developers that can handle the Star Wars license. Not that I'm against Respawn doing a sequel or anything like that with Jedi Fallen Order, but I think EA should not be the only ones to have the Star Wars license. Second. Okay, before I end this video, I want to give my thoughts on two things. The first one is going to be about The Mandalorian, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on the movie The Rise of Skywalker. And the first part, like as I mentioned, is going to be on The Mandalorian. Now, I recently heard about this being an exclusive on Disney's Plus and all that stuff. That is Disney's new streaming service. They have a whole bunch of shows on it, though, including even shows as old as I remember growing up watching when I got home from school, like the Spider-Man one from the 90s as well. And of course, my brother's watching it with his daughter or my niece watching Frozen. God knows how many times, though she really likes Frozen and all that stuff. So anyway, I got a chance to watch The Mandalorian on Disney's Plus, and honestly, I like what I'm seeing about this, though. The Mandalorian, the best way I could sum it up is that it kind of gives off a little bit of a Western vibe to it, though, and that certainly isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I like that style that they are doing with the Mandalorian. I also like the idea that he doesn't take off his helmet or anything like that, and for the majority of the time you see him with his helmet on and so forth. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the 2010 movie Dredd, where Judge Dredd never, outside of one scene at the beginning, but you didn't see his face or anything like that. Here, you never see his face at all. Even in, I think, episode 5, when he takes off the helmet to basically eat a meal and all that stuff, you never see his face and all that stuff, and anything like that. Plus, he also kind of reminds me a little bit of Graves from the video game anime Gungrave, a character who is basically the main protagonist, who rarely speaks and all that stuff. So you kind of get a little bit of that vibe and all. And I have to say, some of the episodes I've really enjoyed it so far. I've only seen about 5 episodes. I'm hoping to get to 6 and 7. But I definitely like what I'm seeing with The Mandalorian. And yes, we've seen Baby Yoda. He's like blown up on the internet and all that stuff. And if this is the future Star Wars, seeing these kind of shows on Disney Plus, I definitely would be down with it. I would definitely be down with more stories about The Mandalorian or other projects similar to The Mandalorian in Disney Plus and so forth. So overall, I gotta say, I like The Mandalorian. It's definitely a good show on Disney Plus. Whether it's worth getting Disney Plus and paying for the $10 a month for it or so, you'll have to debate whether that's worth it or not. So you have to sort of come to your conclusion on that one. But I will say, so far, as far as a show on Disney Plus, though, I definitely like The Mandalorian. I like this. Here's hoping to see more episodes in The Mandalorian, and hopefully we'll see maybe other Star Wars related projects comes on Disney Plus. All right, with that one out, we'll go to the big one, though, Rise of Skywalker. Now, The new Star Wars trilogies has sort of been a mixed bag for a lot of people, though. I liked The Force Awakening. I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was good and all that stuff. It wasn't perfect, but I still enjoyed it, though. The Last Jedi was considered by many to be controversial, at least. Though, personally, I didn't hate The Last Jedi. Yes, say what you will, but I don't 100% follow everything the internet says and all that stuff, but I didn't hate The Last Jedi, but I am willing to admit it's not the strongest of the new trilogy at all. Much like how I view the Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, not the strongest of the Star Wars prequel movies. So, but I didn't hate The Last Jedi as much as most people did. So now we come to this with the Rise of Skywalker and all that stuff, and I'm fully aware about the critics and how they have bombarded this movie. I think it's got a 57% on Rotten Tomato and so forth, but 86 from audience and so forth, Metacritic, this and that. And I'm aware most of the internet has bashed the Rise of Skywalker and so forth, but honestly, after coming away from the movie, you know what? I actually liked it. This felt like a love letter to a lot of longtime Star Wars fans, and there's a lot of references to a lot of the old Star Wars movies. Excuse me. In this movie as well. You finally get to learn about Rey's parent, or who Rey's parents was, and what Rey's identity is. I won't reveal anything like that, but there's one clue they show off that I felt like it kind of gave it away a little bit, though. But I'll let you figure that one out as well. And it was nice to see, I believe, Billy Ray Dean, if I'm saying his name correctly, play Lando Calrissian again and all that stuff. And it was also nice to see Carrie Fisher, the late Carrie Fisher, play Princess Leia. Although, I kind of have to admit, as tragic as unfortunate her death was, after hearing how she passed away, kind of seeing her on the screen kind of felt a little awkward to a certain extent, though. I mean, don't get me wrong, I thought she did great playing. I thought the late Carrie Fisher did great playing Princess Leia and all that stuff, but it just, after hearing how she passed away, it just felt a little awkward. But putting that part aside, though, the movie was just good. I mean, it was nice to see Emperor Palpatine in it and all that stuff, and seeing some of the other returning characters as well. Though I will admit that some of the plot, I do wish that they kind of explained some of the things like Rey's origin maybe a little bit better. Perhaps maybe the Last Jedi didn't work out because of Rian Johnson directing it, though. Although I did like his movie Knives Out, and if he were to do his own Star Wars trilogy, I think that would probably work a bit better. But that's me. But it was just, to me, it was good. It was a good Star Wars film. I came away pleased. I will say, out of the new trilogies, this is the best one out there. And I will say this one is as good or as close as it would be to the original Star Wars trilogy. I'm not saying it's better than the original Star Wars trilogy. I still think the original one is still the best no matter what. But this one is as close as it would get to the original Star Wars trilogy. So if I had to rank the new Star Wars trilogy that came out, I would say Rise of Skywalker is the best one in it, followed by The Force Awakens, and I would say The Last Jedi comes in a distant third. Again, I don't hate The Last Jedi. I don't think it's as bad as a movie as the internet makes it out to be, but it's not the best. But I certainly won't deny it's the weakest of the new trilogies. Kind of similar to how I view the prequels, though. Like, Revenge of the Sith, I thought was the best one of the prequels, followed by The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, which, like The Last Jedi, I thought that was the weakest of the prequels, though. So, my overall take is that I think the critics are wrong, though they're entitled to their opinion, but I think they're wrong, and I think the internet went way overboard with Rise of Skywalker. I thought, if this is how they're closing out the prequels, the original, and the new trilogy, I think this was a great way to do it, and I would recommend it, especially for long-time Star Wars fans, indeed. Okay, this concludes my video review of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, plus my thoughts on the Disney Plus show The Mandalorian, and my thoughts on the movie Rise of Skywalker. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Jedi Fallen Order? Are you happy that EA finally put out a good Star Wars game? For once, is Jedi Fallen Order a good game in your book? Do you like the idea of them combining a little bit of Dark Souls and Metroidvania in the game in any way? What are your thoughts about The Mandalorian on Disney Plus? Are you liking The Mandalorian? Do you like what direction the show is going so far? Would you like to see more episodes of The Mandalorian? Do you think Disney should do more episodes of The Mandalorian? And do you think they should do maybe other Star Wars projects on Disney Plus? And finally, what are your thoughts about The Rise of Skywalker? Do you think The Rise of Skywalker is the best of the new trilogy in any way? Do you think critics got it wrong and this movie isn't as bad as how the critics or some folks on the internet have made it out to be? Or do you think the movie is, or do you think the critics are right and the movie is that bad? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think, and I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it, and I do hope you subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Links will be in the description down below. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. And of course, may the Force be with you. Bye!